Get your point and clickers ready, folks, because we're checking out Broken Sword 5, The Serpent's Curse on the Nintendo Switch. I've certainly spent my time around point-and-click adventure games. I go as far back as the Nintendo Entertainment System playing Maniac Mansion. That was really my first point-and-click adventure, unless you want to count Shadowgate, Deja Vu, and The Uninvited. Now, further on, I would eventually get a PC. And when I got a PC, I, of course, needed to play those point-and-click adventures. Day of the Tentacle, Full Throttle, The Dig, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, jumping over to the Sierra side of things with games like Gabriel Knight 1 and 2, Phantasmagoria, Police Quest, Space Quest, the list goes on and on. I even played those weird oddity-like adventure games that came out on the platform too, like The Phantom, for example. I found in a bargain bin, loved it. Now, during my PC gaming days, I would subscribe to a magazine called PC Gamer. One month I got an issue, and in every issue it came with a PC Gamer demo disc CD, which was loaded with a bunch of PC game demos. This was a lifesaver back in the days before broadband internet, because normally you could only download a game at a time and it would take forever, so bigger demos weren't always available. PC Gamer took care of that with their CD-ROM. So on that month's CD was a game called Circle of Blood. Circle of Blood was a point-and-click adventure game that I fell in love with immediately because it looked like a Disney artist eventually and essentially took a Disney movie in that same art style and made a point-and-click adventure game out of it. It was full of mystery. It was full of intrigue. The characters were lovable. The American George, the French reporter Nico. Very cool, and it had to do with the Knights Templar. Now, I would play this demo and eventually move on to the PlayStation, where I would pick up Circle of Blood / Broken Sword and Broken Sword 2. And I've been off and on with the series ever since, playing the third game on the original Xbox. The fourth game I believe I skipped, and the rumors of a fifth game have been going around for a while. So, fast forward, I walk into a GameStop, I'm browsing through the used library of their Switch games, and I see Broken Sword 5, The Serpent's Curse, and remember, that's right, this game was in development because the original designer decided to launch a Kickstarter for it, which I thought was pretty cool. Apparently the Kickstarter was successful. I believe this was put on PC and just ported over to Switch, so I thought, hey, it's been a while since I've played a good point-and-click adventure game, so I'm going to go ahead and pick this up. So I picked it up, popped it in my Switch, and right away you're introduced to that kind of original art style that was presented in the first Broken Sword and the second Broken Sword, and take that and add like HD graphics to it, some a little bit more drawing, stuff like that. So like kind of like in between, right? So you get these vibrant colors that are familiar to the series, and of course right from the get-go there's a murder that occurs and you're right into the intrigue and the mystery right again. And of course George and Nico always seem to be together. Anytime disaster happens to one of them, someone is very, very close behind them. Now, I was really excited to play this game, especially playing the opening. I thought I was going to have a fun adventure game with unique puzzles, great areas to visit, but as it turns out, this game just isn't a lot of fun. Let's start from the very beginning. You get out and George decides that his main objective right now is to figure out who murdered this person in this art museum, because as it turns out, George is an insurer and he was responsible for one of the paintings that were stolen. And it just so happens that when this painting was stolen, the guy who ran the art museum was shot, and now we have a murder and a really expensive missing painting going with this. Now this painting eventually turns into an object that could pretty much control the fate of the world. It's attached to something that big. But the thing is, the urgency of finding this picture and this urgency of who the main villain ends up being just kind of goes out with a whimper rather than a bang. You can never really take the main villain seriously. There's no real threat to you. In my entire play experience, I never died. It never seemed like I could die. And even the final confrontation with this guy just seems so boring and so set piece. And I know that sounds silly saying that because, hey, adventure games, point and click adventure games specifically, are pretty much set pieces. But the set pieces in this are so apparent. The free form of walking doesn't seem to be there. The very limited options for dialogue are presented in this as well. So you really don't get to choose your own adventure per se. It's just very, very, very by the numbers in terms of adventure games. The story's boring. The music's great. The characters themselves, well, unfortunately, they're like bad clones of their original characters from Broken Sword 1 and 2. George has always kind of been this American goofball with really bad jokes, but the jokes now are just so bad that you can't even give a pity laugh to them. Nico, she's just kind of there. There's really no urgency for her to get the story that she's always wanted to get. She's always wanted to be one of the biggest journalists out there, and by this game, it just feels like she's kind of there and she's just doing her thing, and there's no urgency anymore in this game. So I could keep going, but overall, just a very boring game. I really had to fight with myself to finish this game. Now, there's a hint system that you can utilize in this game if you happen to get stuck with the puzzles. Some of the puzzles in this game are so easy. Some of them, to reach the solutions, are just outright ridiculous and go back to like Gabriel Knight 3 style puzzles where you're putting on a fake mustache and you're putting makeup on yourself to have a disguise to fool this grieving widow to get this key. It's some of the stuff in this game just gets absolutely ridiculous. And again, it takes out the mystique and the mystery and the danger of this game overall. And again, it just seems like walking around, you really have to click on things sometimes 2, 3, 4 times. Once you click on those items again, you can go back and click on those items, and maybe this time you can interact with it, or this time you can pick up an item from a knapsack, stuff like that. So overall, just a really unfortunately boring game that if it wasn't for the puzzle solution system, the hint system in there that would tell you how to get past some of these extremely annoying puzzles, I probably would have stopped altogether. Overall, Broken Sword 5, not for me. I love adventure games, but this one just didn't do it for me. I know there's a lot of fans with the Broken Sword franchise, and maybe they really enjoyed this game. Possibly they're more hardcore than I am when it comes to adventure games, because again, this one just didn't do it for me. Because this game has launched on the Switch, I'm hoping that it did relatively well, so maybe the original designer can go back and really make the 6th game back to its roots, back to its great storyline, focusing on the Knights Templar, and just really a more exciting and more fun adventure overall. I'm Mike Murtis. This is Gamer Logic. Thanks for watching.